Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cincinnati Reds Minor League Talk. I'm doing this one on my own today, kind of a spur of the moment thing, but I was sitting there thinking about the Cincinnati Reds' upcoming international signing period, and I didn't really have a chance to get a hold of Courage, so hopefully we can get another episode out later this week, but I thought I'd tackle this one all on my own today, just kind of get some thoughts out there. The international signing period starts back up in, let's see, today's Tuesday. 4 or 5 days, whenever Saturday is, on July 2nd. And the Reds have the second largest bonus allotment pool to work with. Now, unlike in the Rule 4 draft, which teams select players from high school and college, the international signing period works quite a bit differently. In both scenarios, you get a bonus pool to work with, but nobody really seems to care about the limitations on the bonus pools for the international side of things. Nice example is that last year the Los Angeles Dodgers had roughly $2 million in bonus pool money to spend, and they spent $96 million after they ended up paying all of their fines and fees. Now, that does come along with the fact that they can't sign players for the next 2 years for more than $300,000 each. But when you spend $96 million in 1 year to sign players when other teams are spending anywhere between $2 and $10 million, there's kind of a disparity going on there. Now, the Reds have been preaching since they kind of told the public that they're going all in on this rebuild, that having the second largest amount of bonus pool money in the international signing period is kind of one of those things that they're going to use to their advantage, and they can use it to their advantage this year. 10 teams are unallowed to sign players for over $300,000 this season, because of penalties they've incurred over the past 2 years for going over their bonus allotment. Now, that leaves 20 teams left to pretty much pay all of the top-tier players. So, in theory at least, that should give a team like the Reds that has more money to work with before they have to face any penalties an advantage. Baseball America actually just came out with their top 50 international prospects. Now, this list does not include any Cuban-born players, who mostly are over the age of 20, some of which aren't eligible for the bonus pool money anyways. They're pretty much just like any other free agent, and they don't count towards this, the penalties that you would incur if you sign them. Now, there are some rules for that, but we won't really get into that too much. But of the top 50 players on Baseball America's prospect list, all of whom are teenagers, the Reds aren't linked to a single one of them. Now, how that happens when you've got the second largest bonus pool to work with, and you've been trying to sell it to your fans as a part of the rebuild, that this is where you're going to spend your money to help kick off the rebuilding process, that's a little bit confusing. Now, to be fair, the Reds do have seemingly a deal lined up with Cuban shortstop Alfredo Rodriguez. MLBpipeline.com ranks him as the number 6 prospect internationally. He's a 22-year-old shortstop from Cuba, hasn't played in 2 years, very good defender, enormous questions about whether he'll ever hit or not. When he was in Cuba last, he was 20 years old, and he slugged under 300. It's not very good. It's a very big jump from Cuba even to the minor leagues. For all of the successes that we have seen come over from Cuba, there are just as many, if not more, guys who couldn't cut it in A-ball who signed out of Cuba. It seems that the top-end guys that we've seen come over from Cuba and have success have all signed for, 50, 60, 70 million dollars. The Reds seem to have a deal in place with Alfredo Rodriguez worth somewhere between $6 and $7 million, which is more than their entire bonus allotment is. Now, with all of the teams ineligible to sign players, they will be able to trade for more money if they don't want to pay the fines and the fees, and maybe penalized in the future for going over their allotment and not being able to sign players for over $300,000. Of course, all of that could change at the end of the year when the collective bargaining agreement is up. That's what a lot of teams believe is going to happen, and it seems that more than a few teams are just going to go just on a spending spree this year and hope that everything changes and the penalties that they would have incurred, at least as far as not being able to sign players in the future, they won't happen. The Reds don't really seem to be one of those teams. It seems that they're pretty much putting all of their eggs in the Alfredo Rodriguez basket. I'm not really sure that's the best plan ever. But when things come to international signings, if you nail your top pick, if you get that guy right, nothing else matters. So the Reds, they really need to hope they're going to get this right if the rumors are true that they're not really in on any of the other top 50 prospects in the draft or in the international class this year. Now, they seem to be much higher on Alfredo Rodriguez than everyone else is. And they're paying more for him than it seems anybody else in the class is going to be paid, despite the fact that he's not or he's not the top prospect on any list. So the Reds need to be sure that they're right and everybody else probably isn't if they're gonna go with this plan. It's definitely an interesting situation. Instead of signing these teenagers, the Reds are going to go out and sign somebody who's a little bit older, someone who's closer to the major leagues, at least in theory, than these other guys are. No one doubts whether or not this guy can play major league quality defense at shortstop right now. That's what he's known for. It's pretty much the bat that's everybody's questioned, and there have been some reports come out since the initial report that the Reds were interested in signing this guy that, he's put on more weight, good weight. He's gotten better at the plate. Now, he hasn't been playing in games, so we're just talking about how he's looked in workouts and things like that. But at the very least, we are hearing some more positive reviews about what he's been able to do at the plate. So maybe the Reds have seen more of him since then, and they do have better information than other teams and other sources have. But, it's real interesting to see them throw pretty much 90 to 95% of the money that they are going to spend this upcoming season on one player, especially when the player isn't, under any circumstance, considered the top player in the class. Maybe he'll help with the rebuild a little bit sooner, given his age, compared to signing a 16 or 17-year-old who, under any realistic circumstance, won't be ready for 5 or 6 years. But, if you're building for the long term, this may not be the best plan. Looking back in 5 or 6 years from now, it's going to be interesting to see how this worked out for the Reds. Did Alfredo Rodriguez turn into something that was more than just, a utility player? If not, they probably wasted a very big opportunity by putting all of their eggs into one basket, instead of, maybe trying to focus a little bit more on the younger side of players and trying to get 3 or 4 guys, 3 or 4, high quality signings at the time for the same price you paid for one guy. But that's really all I wanted to talk about today. The signing period starts on Saturday. If you're 16 years old at that point, you're allowed to sign. As long as you turn 16 before the minor league season ends, you're eligible to sign in this signing period once you turn 16. The Reds aren't really linked to anybody right now in the top 50. We'll probably see a few guys sign with teams that, they weren't expected to sign with, and hopefully the Reds can jump in and, grab a guy or two like that. But all of the indications from Ben Badler at Baseball America, who he's the best at what he does, tracking international prospects and their signings and all the rumors. He's basically said that he doesn't see the Reds or hear the Reds being in on anybody, over that $200,000 range, which that's a pretty low tier. I mean, you can find players in that price range, but you're talking about guys ranked between 75 and 150 overall in the class when you get to that price point. So, maybe the Reds will get lucky and they'll find a guy in that area that they can develop over the next few years. But it just seems that they're kind of going all in on this one player. So hopefully it works out for them. We will definitely see. If you're watching this here on YouTube, hit that red subscribe button. Get updates whenever we put a new video out. Whether it's me and Courage talking about the Reds farm system, or we're gonna have we're hoping to get some more player interviews up in the near future. We put up videos of players in game action throughout the season and even during the off season. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure to subscribe. If you're watching on the website, head on over to YouTube and subscribe. And maybe we'll be back later this week to talk about other ongoings in the farm system. See ya.